Anissa's in the house. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I can't believe I can hear myself, and I can't believe I can hear you because I'm an
How's
old
that?
man. I'm an old man trying to learn
You
how to
and
do
you
this.
and me both.
Wait, you just celebrated your 27th birthday on
That,
December 12th.
that is right. That is a correct thing.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I don't know how I'm as old as you are. You're a very young person.
Oh, that's what they say. 27,
Anissa,
47 is a new 27.
oh yes. Anissa, I'm gonna try to say this name right. S-I-B.
Asabi. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, Annissa S-I-B George.
Yeah.
Beautiful name, by the way.
Oh, I thank you.
Yeah. I have a daughter whose middle name is Annissa.
No, you don't really?
She's 15.
Does she spell it with one N?
No, she's spelling it the other way. Aneessah.
Ah, oh, very nice.
Yeah, it is one N, but
I like it. Yeah. No,
um,
I'm two N's, but it should be spelled with one N.
still said the same way.
Oh yeah. No. My because my grandmother, my father's mother is Nafisa, and my mother's mother is Anna. So
Not your father's mom is the soul.
Nafisa.
It's the soul.
I actually never knew the meaning of that name, but I will say Annissa. What's that mean?
Yeah,
Friend to
Annissa.
the,
What is Annissa?
friend to the lonely.
Friends for the lonely.
Friend to the lonely.
Okay, I always thought it to be the same thing. A friendly person to everyone around her. If
I mean,
we
that
have
makes sense. I mean, everything in translation and via culture and all that.
okay. I know you had a rough day. I know you had a lot of work.
Not rough. I love this. I feel grateful to be able to do it.
Because political science is your thing. Because I was going to talk about you studying political science at BU.
Yep.
Masters University from UMass Boston.
Yep.
So this is what you are. This is your DNA. This is what you want to do.
It literally is.
Okay, you weren't pushed into it because the idea
I'd
behind
say
you.
I'd say there's like a small. You have a daughter that's 15. Her middle name is Annissa. When I was 15, I expressed an interest to my father. Literally, I might have been 16, but 15, 16 years old. I suggested to my dad that I perhaps wanted to get into government, maybe someday run for office. And he said to me that no Arab girl with the name Annissa Asabi would ever win anything in this city. So there might be like a small motivating factor that my father told my 15-year-old self, you can't do something.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. And it was out of love. It was his experience, based on him and his experience. And so, maybe that might have been one motivating factor.
What is he saying now?
Well, now, unfortunately, he's not with us.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm sure he wishes he was here because I wish he were here because he absolutely would have been my biggest cheerleader, biggest fan, biggest campaign supporter. But also he likely would have also been my biggest critic.
Wait a minute. He said what naysayers would say who aren't even in your family.
Well, for my father, he said, go into business. If you really like politics, go into law. Because he just, his experience in the U.S. and Boston was his experience. And he came to this country as an adult, as an immigrant, as an Arab, as a Muslim. And he had his life wasn't easy.
Little does he know, he and the millions of faceless many created this platform for all of us to stand on. Yeah. Those who thought it was difficult never knew that they were actually paving the way.
Yep.
You understand? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well, I would say, I agree with you. And I think about my dad, his parents, his, great-grandparents, great-grandparents, etc. down the road, sort of the things that we all do, what we put in motion when we don't even know what we put in motion. But it's also relevant to my mother's story. So my grandparents, my mother's side, my grandmother at the age of 14, I have my triplets are 14 right now, was taken from her home in Poland to work in a labor camp in Germany. My grandfather was in the Polish army, prisoner of war, met my grandmother in a camp in Germany post World War II, eventually came to the United States, just worked hard, like, everybody does, and bought the house I grew up in when my mother was young. And he bought the house because it had a storefront. He was he repaired TVs and radios back when we repaired those things as opposed to just putting them out in the trash. And so my family home that I grew up in, 3-family on Dorchester Ave, has a storefront. And this last summer, the people that were renting from my mother left. So the store's been open, and then January I decide I'm running for mayor, and we're like, where are we going to put the headquarters? I'm like, we're putting the headquarters in my grandfather's store. Again, my grandfather bought that house because it had a storefront. He wanted to open his own shop. Right. And he, again, never in a million years would he ever imagine his granddaughter would be running for mayor of Boston out of that storefront. I remember vaguely as a little kid going to the downstairs to the store and hanging out with him, and just in his workshop, and I vaguely remember it, but I remember it. And the last time it was probably vacant, I was 16 years old, and they let me have my Sweet 16 party in the store. So
you got, so that's the new, everybody, that's the new spot. If you want to do your wedding after party, if you want go to Annissa George's people's place. So I'm going to hit you something. You go there and grandpa's doing his thing with the TV, with those people dropping off those big TVs with the
big tubes, the big giant tubes.
He opens the back and he sticks that little bulb in there that looks like a spark plug. Remember those things? So, and voila, it's fixed. Yeah. So if we gave you an old TV, you would know how to. No? I wouldn't know what to do with it. I would not know what to do with it. But did you save any? Do you have any of old TVs? No. What we did have, I had in my bedroom. We unfortunately had a house fire, so didn't really have much of anything. But I had in my bedroom, it was like a bureau that my digital TV or whatever at the time sat on. But it was it was like a piece of furniture that you'd put the bulb into. But it was empty. But when my sisters are much younger than me, they used to crawl into it and pretend they were doing a TV show, but they could sit inside this it was just a piece of furniture because there was no tube. It's fun. That was a nice little trip down memory lane. I like that. I'm gonna tell you where I'm from, Orchard Park. Hey. Yeah. We there was a time when a lot of people were able to afford big floor model TV. Yeah. Which back then was like TV with the little legs. That's the thing I had, just the stand, just the when that went on the blink, you just put another TV on top of it. Yeah. Like you said, it was just furniture. Well, you tried the hanger. Remember the hanger for the antenna to replace the antenna? Oh Lordy, yes. Nowadays you got to do that again. Well, because of the way they're trying to charge people just to watch NBC nowadays. Yep. We actually bought one of those antennas, and those aren't cheap anymore to pick up the 50, 60 bucks. I got one. Not the digital, but it's the analog. I don't know. Just to pick up the regular TV. Yep. Because that's really all you need. No one, there's like a million sports channels, and I couldn't keep up with all those sports channels. We did during COVID. We actually, because I got the 4 boys and they do love their sports. We actually bought one of the packages so they can, something. They need it. Yeah. So it's 4 boys. Basically, it's 5 now because you got the husband and 4 boys. I got 5 children. I do. It's good though. And then the dog is a boy. The love story that some people don't know about. Mom and dad in the city of love. Yeah. Paris. Yeah. Yes? Yep. That's where they met. So was it just happenstance? I mean, how exactly did that love story occur?
So my mother went to college. My mother went to school here in the States. She went to college to be a French teacher. She wanted to teach French. So her and her friend, I forget the friend's name, but her and her girlfriend went to Paris to do like a semester abroad type of thing. So one evening, the story is, one evening, the friend didn't want to go out. My mother wanted to go watch Charlie Chaplin movie. So my mother said, I'm gonna go by myself. So she went by herself. And as she was walking, she was in front of the Church of Notre Dame. And my father thought she was attractive, saw her on the street, exchanged conversation with her. And then he ended up supposedly they were going to go to the movies together, but they couldn't find the theater. So they ended up going to, I guess, a cafe or whatever. And then she went home, whatever. And then he ended up coming to the States on a 90-day fiance visa, which is my mother's. She loves it.
There's a fiance visa?
There's a TV show now, but my mother's favorite TV show is 90-Day Fiance.
Wait,
but anyway,
there's such thing as a 90-day fiance visa?
Yeah, so you have to to come, because he was a foreigner. He was actually from Tunisia, but he was working in France. So he came on a 90-day fiance visa, and you either get married or you go home. So my mother, being Polish Catholic, and my father, being Arab Muslim, created a little bit of conflict in the household. But whatever deals were made, my parents were eventually married within that 90-day period.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I guess the story also goes that my grandparents originally weren't going to go to this marriage, but they did end up going. And it happened in my mother's best friend's living room.
It had to happen.
I have a beautiful picture of them, their wedding day, cutting the cake or something. And then I do have a great picture of my grandparents at my parents' wedding. So proof that they actually showed up.
But,
and then,
even the cake alone is like, is it kosher? Is it this? Is it that? What was that cake?
My father at that point in his life was just really interested in my mother.
He didn't care.
He didn't care. He was happy to be married.
So he didn't care if it was lots of cake and Italian subs with a bunch of ham on it.
Well, that's what you gotta.
He wanted the girl.
It's the kielbasa and the gołąbki that you gotta worry about as an Arab when you're marrying the Polish.
Oh my God! Yeah. What? That must have been. As time passed, that must have been the most hilarious.
Yeah, I'd say that my grandparents, oh God, they grew to love my father so much, and really, my mother was an only child. So my father became a surrogate son in 1,000 different ways. And, they really fell in love with each other. My grandparents.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful. I want to talk about diversity. Now that we know you've grown up in a very diverse household. But what I want to go back to you as a child. Mm. All right. So what are some of the hobbies you had then that you still are into now or wish you were?
So, I'll tell you something that I'm still in. I'll answer both those questions. So when I was little, my dad worked a lot of nights. And my mother knew how to sew. So one night, my mother's junk TV was Dallas. So that's my father wasn't around. So she'd let me watch Dallas with her. And I was little. I was probably 6, 7 years old. But I was 6 years old one night. And during Dallas, I convinced her to teach me how to sew. So we made a Barbie skirt, during commercial breaks. We'd run the kitchen, the sewing machine was set up on the kitchen table. So I was 6 years old. My mother taught me how to sew, and I never stopped. I love sewing. It's a true passion of mine. My grandmother, probably about the same time, taught me how to crochet, which is with the one hook. When I was a little bit older, I taught myself how to knit. And your listeners, your viewers may know that I own the Stitch House, where I teach knitting and sewing now. So it's in
person,
Well,
In person?
we don't teach right now because of COVID, but I have a
Oh,
store
okay.
and we sell yarn and fabric and we teach knitting and sewing, although that's
Wait,
off
so
right now.
I never even knew there was a portal. I didn't even know there was such an availability. I didn't know something like that existed.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's, I was actually talking to my store manager today. Now that I'm running for mayor, a lot of my attention, I'm not able to focus really on the business. So I meet with my shop manager every Monday. So we were talking today and we're just making small talk, talking about the shop and business. And she goes, what, like, when you opened the shop, what did you envision? I said, I envisioned not my grandmother's yarn shop. Like, it's sleek, it's cool, it's a great place. Like, because a lot of times when you craft, you do it alone. And I didn't want that. We wanted to create a sense of community and a place where you could learn, but learn with other people. And we've been able to do that. And so I've just like always continued. I do love sewing. And I say in the campaign trail to my staff, I say, if you see me sewing, things are not good. Like, I need a break. And that means like I've separated myself just to clear my
Are you sewing right now while we're talking?
No, I'm not sewing.
Oh.
No.
Oh gosh.
No,
okay, I was gonna say.
It came up. I had my youngest sister's getting married later this year. And so I stopped, I picked up the bridesmaids dresses for the girls. And when I was picking up the dresses, I saw this beautiful dress. I said, for the inaugural ball, when I become mayor, this would be a beautiful dress. And then I said, I'll have to sew my own dress because I made my wedding dress. I made my bridesmaids dresses. I'm a pretty.
You made your own wedding dress?
I'm a pretty highly skilled sewer.
Goodness
gracious. So I said, I'll have to make the dress I saw. I said, I'll model my sample off of this dress. But I knit quite a bit because it's portable. I can, take it with me where I go if I'm waiting for somebody or I'm on a call or I'm in a meeting, and I can do it mindlessly. It does.
Everybody's. I'm sorry to cut you off, but everybody's watching, and they always put politicians on the spot. May I put you on the spot?
Right, please.
Will you knit me a kufi, a red, black, and green kufi?
I'd be happy to.
And then when everything settles down, you can make one of the regular kufi, the fez type of kufi.
Yep. Well, that one that we'd have to felt. It'd be a little bit more manipulation for that. But yes, I can. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's like hard cotton.
Yeah.
I know that takes a while. I'll probably get it in 3 years.
Felted wool.
No, it doesn't have to be felted. It could be hard like cotton.
Yeah, so usually what you do there, I can handle it. Usually with that, it's knit, it's kind of, and then you wash it so it shrinks so the fibers firm up.
And it almost looks like a jeans jacket, so I can kind of fashion it myself. I used to wear those all the time, by the way.
I love it.
I used to wear it, and then I sew a patch on it with the star and the moon on it.
I love it.
Everybody knows me from wearing that. We're gonna get to Dorchester so I can talk about those everybody's.
I love it.
You're chairing.
I didn't answer the other question. The thing I wish I still did.
Oh, what is that?
This would be a flashback. So this is like a back in the Dorchester day, back in the city of Boston day. Is I do wish that I still roller skated.
God.
I actually have, and my husband a couple of years ago bought me a new pair of roller skates. I wish I may have to find some time over the next week to just put them on and roll around on the street. So do you remember, we're the same age, do you remember the Boston?
We're not the same age, young lady.
You're not, I thought you're the same age as me.
Anyway. You're about almost a little older than my wife. You said you were 37?
Yeah, I'm 47. The 47.
Okay, my wife is 44 and I'm 54. So.
All right. So we're in the same range. But so you might remember the Boston Street Olympics.
Yeah.
So every summer, because I went to Dot House summer camp, this one year they had every summer camp. This might have to be something I bring back when I become mayor. Every summer camp sent, like, they had their own like contests, and one of them was like freestyle roller skate and one was speed skating. So I did make it to the speed skating round, and it was at the Boston Common. It was in, I think they must have drained the frog pond. My medal, I still have my medal somewhere. It got kind of tattered over the years.
You had a medal for it?
Yes, because I think I won second place. I was so upset. I remember I was probably 10 years old. I have a good memory. And I remember the girl next to me bent over. And you see when you watch the speed skate now, you bend over because you cross the finish line first. But yeah, that's a nice, another good memory. Back in the
Goodness gracious. You weren't that upset, right? You didn't go get a crew of people with bats to like mess her legs up.
day. No.
That was a horrible time in our history. In either case, well, I didn't know that, but I'll tell you one thing. So the very first time that I went skating at Chez Vous roller skating,
Yeah.
my legs went like this.
Whoop.
And I never did it again. I was like, no way. The hamstrings, everything was, I'm like, how can people do this?
Yeah.
And these guys is coming by me just
Spinning, yeah,
dancing.
doing the whole little
I can't do none of that.
Yep.
I can't do none of it. So is roll bounce, is rock skate, roll bounce one of your joints? Is that one of your songs?
That's been for a long time.
That's the song. When that comes on, it's the party started.
Yep. Yep.
Roll
and
bounce.
and then you'd partner up sometimes. And then when they would do the
And
reverse,
then you do the little scissor thing and all that. I wish I could.
back in the day.
I DJ'd at Chez Vous for a while, and I did it just so I could see if I could learn what they were doing. But the food in the back smelled better than me trying to watch, so I just kept getting pizza, and I never learned how to skate. But hey, that's great. You know how to skate.
For a long time. I hope I can do it again because I just promised that I'm gonna do it in the next week.
Now those are beautiful drapes in the back or curtains.
Thank you.
Did you do those?
I did.
You made those?
I did.
Come on. Oh my God. So what is the name of the place?
My shop is Stitch House.
Stitch House.
Yeah.
Okay.
846 Dorchester Ave.
Stitch House. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want anything done or did, go there.
So you want to learn to do.
Oh, it's for learning only.
Only we don't do for you. We
like people actually come in there saying, I want to learn how to sew.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Now I know how to sew a little bit, but I'm not gonna say I know how to make a shirt. I could probably fix a hole in it.
That's it.
The whole idea behind putting a shirt collar on, and I don't know how y'all do that.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk. You being city councilor at large, and you're the chair in that council, homelessness, mental health, and recovery. All of those things impact the Black community. Yeah. I'm saying that particularly. Yeah. I do know they impact the community at large.
Yeah.
But particularly, are you aware that with almost all of those things, all three of them, a lot of people are somewhat, or some people are too dignified to admit to being in those kind of situations. And as it relates to mental health, some people, now it's not just Black, this is a lot of people, don't want to admit to that because it brings a second strike to them. In one community, you could be looked at as other to people, and that will add to the other, the mental health and the admittance of it. Now, as it relates to substance abuse or addictiveness or what have you, people trying to get back on track, people trying to be rehabilitated. How exactly are you getting to an idea of being able to help, knowing that this is not something that you just say, hey, this is the one way of doing it? And I don't want to be long-winded about that particular thing, but as it relates to all three of those, how are you working with any outsiders or any people within the community or within the I would say mental health industry itself to find a common ground, a way to fix this, not fix this, but find a fix to it?
Right. No, it's a great question. First of all, there's been some restructuring this last year with the city council and committees. So I chair education and I vice chair ways and means, which is all of our budget and spending. And then I vice chair public health, which now oversees a lot of that work. And I've continued to focus specifically on homelessness, mental health, and recovery. and supporting those having that experience. Especially our families. Many of our families are experiencing homelessness. We have 5,000 kids in the Boston Public Schools experiencing homelessness, and it certainly has a devastating impact on children and on families, as does anyone dealing with addiction and suffering with a substance use disorder, and mental health. The stigma to all of those things is very real. It's real across all communities. In particular, some of our like cultural communities around mental health and substance use disorder, it's really hard to access services because of the stigma that's attached. The work that I've done over the last 5 years in this space in particular around families experiencing homelessness is I've started, or I started many years ago, this roundtable. So we bring shelter providers together. We bring families with lived experience. I've met with families. I've met with children who are experiencing homelessness. As a teacher, I had my own students who are experiencing homelessness. So for me, they're really they have to be a partner in this work. When we think about individuals experiencing homelessness, it's the same thing. Those that are doing the work every single day, those with lived experience, those experiencing homelessness or substance use disorder or mental health issues have to be at the table to identify the pathways. And like you said, there isn't just one answer, but the pathways out and, for help, and then eventually to recovery and wellness and housing. And it is about housing. It's about creating more affordable housing. It's about services. It's about recovery. So the work is definitely very varied because there isn't one approach. And certainly when it's homelessness, it's about creating housing, but then making sure that families and individuals can maintain that housing, have the opportunities for work and opportunities to create wealth, opportunities to put food on the table, opportunities to get trained for new jobs and new careers, but then also to get the stability they need around healthcare and mental health care in particular. So it's all of those things. And we often talk about it when we look at like what's happening at Mass Ave and Melnia Cass Boulevard, but it's across all of our communities for sure, absolutely. And it's regular folk, it's regular people that are especially like sleeping in their cars overnight and we don't know, couch surfing families, kids being like passed around from family members and friends so that they have a warm place to stay and they've got a shower and they can go to school and not feel stigmatized, but we know that it happens anyway. So it's an enormous issue. This last year, the end of last year, I passed an ordinance that forms a special commission to focus especially on our families, because I'm embarrassed that we as a city have failed our children and we've allowed our children, not just in the city of Boston, but across the state to go homeless. So we've got a great deal of work that we need to do. And there's so much of it undone, and creating less stigma to access services, both if you're dealing with substance use disorder or mental health issue, we've got to find better ways to get care to people.
That's a great answer, and I appreciate the work that you've been doing, and definitely look forward to more work. I also, you mentioned 5,000 students homeless, and it just occurred to me that when we were growing up, and we would lightly call other people mom, or that's my other mom, and that's my other dad, and that's my, we had a mom and we had a home and it was perfect and everything was fine, but our mother met with the other person and we were allowed to stay over and things like that. And so we grew up knowing that family. So I would suppose that what you're saying, these homeless, the children now, they don't have a home to go to. They're going to their friend's home or their friend's home and just couch to couch,
yeah,
and actually living that way with no place to bounce back to.
Yep.
They're not doing it as a form of leisure,
right,
and just some downtime with a friend. They're actually doing it out of form of necessity. Do you know what would contribute to a child, and anybody under 18 in school, what contributes to them actually being homeless in some of these cases that you're talking about?
Yeah, and that's that couch surfing that we talk about in so many families, mostly families led by females, by mothers, who really work hard too often to like cover that up, to make an adventure out of it, to protect their children, because that's as mothers, as fathers, we want to protect our kids, and it adds a great deal of stress to the lives of these kids, and certainly to the parents and to the families. But it's there's a number of things that contribute to it. Almost all of the families that I've worked with, that are experiencing homelessness, are that example of working poor. They are paycheck to paycheck, and something has happened in their life. Their cost of housing has gone up, rent went up. They had an unforeseen medical expense, some sort of crisis, domestic violence. A kid got sick. We have lots of children, if medically complex issues, and all of a sudden the mother just can't work anymore and provide for their family. And all of a sudden they find themselves evicted. They find themselves on the street. They find themselves, or it's a mental health crisis, or it's a substance use disorder that leads a family to this really awful experience. And what my work is to make sure that when homelessness does occur, and we want to eliminate it and limit it, but when it does occur, that it is brief and non-repeating, because we do find for many of our families who are experiencing homelessness, they may get stably housed for a short period of time. But again, unless we do these other things around mental health, around physical health, around economic opportunity, around other stabilization, we can't, we're going to find a family that once again will be experiencing homelessness. And it's, there's a tremendous amount of work, especially by many of our nonprofit partners, to both end homelessness, but to also support families during that time of crisis.
That struggle of trying to end homelessness while developers are trying to, it sounds to me and looks to me, purposely perpetrate homelessness. How does that work? Where no matter what kind of jobs you find, will they find jobs that will sustain them in legitimate homes at the prices that we have in our communities? Are there landlords participating in this? How's this really going to happen?
Actually, that's a great question, because we've done a lot of work through my office with the Housing Authority and private landlords to house more families, especially during this time. We know how at risk our families are, and we really want to work hard to prevent homelessness from starting in the first place. And we have a lot of partners doing this work with us, but it really is about creating more affordable, truly affordable housing. Again, most, if you're at the highest wealth levels or you're at the lowest, there's often opportunities at, there's always opportunities at the luxury level. But for our lowest, our families in deep poverty, we often have an answer to it. It's that working poor that are most at risk and most vulnerable to shifts in the marketplace. So as a city, it's really our obligation to support families and to make sure that as a city, we're really in the business of creating more, and I say like more affordable housing. So at lower area median income levels, but also making sure that we're supporting families in workforce development, like making sure they have an opportunity to make more money, to find the middle class, to grow their household income, to purchase a home. At some point we should be working to help families buy their own home. And then also through the special commission and through the work of my shelter roundtable, we've identified lots of other things that we could be doing within public housing, things that we could do at the state level to create some incentives for lower or more affordable housing, lower priced housing, and to also make sure that we're building family-sized housing, because we find some affordability, but it's, the 1 bedroom or the 2 bedroom, which is going to be really difficult for a family of 5 or 6. And we know that the size we've seen over the years, because we've studied this data, the size, family size the size of any family experiencing homelessness has also grown. And the average, average family size in America is like 2.5. But the average size of a family experiencing homelessness is actually 4. And they experience homelessness for a longer period of time because it's more difficult to find affordable family-sized housing. So on the city council, I'm pro-development, pro-growth, want to see this city grow and welcome residents, but we have to continue creating opportunities for our residents to live here in the city, to call Boston home, to live and be housed stably, and then also explore opportunities for ownership, because ownership is the ultimate stabilizer.
Actually, it is. You're right. Wow, I appreciate that. Wow.
We should be doing that on our business side too, for especially our small businesses. Ownership, because you are much more in charge of your own destiny when ownership is at play. And we've got to look to also create more opportunities for affordable small commercial opportunities, the same way that we do that on the housing side. Because when we think about, I love, we'll do every now and then a family dinner at Bertucci's, right? I like Bertucci's. I know what I'm going to get. I know my pasta I like. The kids know the pizza they like, but that's not a real experience, right? I want to go, and I love an Adams Corner Molinari's. We actually went our Sunday, we did dinner out with the kids. Last night we went to De Palma's in East Boston. I love that local mom and pop, locally owned, because I know they're reinvesting in the community. I know that they're hiring local. I know that they're, my support of that business is helping families put food on their tables at home. And if we don't create more opportunities for businesses like that to open across our city, especially thinking about the impacts that COVID has had on them, it's just going to be those large national chains. They're the only ones that are going to have access to the capital and the private investment to continue to grow. And so I really worry about, I'm excited that today we've seen some easing of the restrictions for small businesses, both, restaurants and bars, but also retailers and specialty stores and service businesses. Because I really worry about the future, and we've seen too many businesses close during this last year. So we've got to support those that are currently in existence because they really need support. We need to make it easier for them to grow, especially as businesses reopen or the restrictions are being let up a little bit certainly in a safe way. And then we have to start thinking about how do we work with business owners to open new businesses, because an entrepreneur, a small business owner, sees a challenge as an opportunity. So how do we as government support them in doing that? Because there's going to be lots of opportunity on the marketplace as we roll out the vaccine, as we make sure that everyone's safe, as consumer confidence comes back. So it's good. There's good stuff on the horizon. It's just right now is a difficult time.
Annissa George, ladies and gentlemen, with yours truly, MC Spice, Politickin with MC Spice. Goodness gracious, pretty good stuff there. I imagine a world where now that we know what pandemics can do, and now that we see all over the internet and all over the news about the last pandemic that came 100 years ago. All right, when are we going to get sharp and say, let us invest into what may happen in 100 years? Does that sound reasonable?
No, it does, because it's not going to be 100 years. The next pandemic, the next crisis, first of all, that's not 100 years. The next crisis that we're going to face, and it ties back to your earlier questions, I believe is a mental health crisis. As society starts to reopen, as we welcome kids back into our schools, as our elderly, our older Bostonians come out of isolation, there's going to be grief. There's going to be a re-experience of loss. We've seen the trauma that this pandemic has created. We see that the pure difficulty that our business owners have faced. This pandemic has devastated lives for sure. The complications, the health complications will be persistent for a period of time. And as we reemerge from isolation, from quarantine, from being socially distant from one another, the grief and the trauma is going to be very real. And I worry about the families who have lost economic opportunity. I worry about our kids who have had learning loss. I worry about families who have had death and loss, communities who have had death and loss, both in people and in community. We have to be better prepared for this. I do a lot of advocacy, especially as education chair, around having more mental health supports in all of our schools, because it's real for our kids. And certainly it's real for the adults in those buildings. But we need to make sure that we also have a mental health response to the needs of our members of our community, both geographic community, but also cultural communities, and a response that is sensitive to the needs of those particular communities and delivers care in a way that's appropriate and sensitive to the needs, again, because not everybody's up for a 45-minute session on a couch. Mental health services delivered in community should look and be reflective of the needs of that community, certainly delivered in the appropriate languages, certainly delivered in the appropriate sort of style. We call that like cultural competency. It has to meet our residents exactly where they are.
So what you're saying is what we need to prepare for is a delayed reaction from all those perspectives, all those viewpoints, from the mental health, the abuse. You're saying there's going to be a delayed reaction, and that in and of itself will constitute a pandemic or epidemic.
Another crisis. Another crisis. And we just have to have the tools in place, the resources in place to help. I mean, think about medical workers, think about our nurses, think about our frontline workers who never went home in March, right? Think about, they're just like functioning through this period of time. Think about our families who lost jobs, and as the world reopens, their job may not be there for them on the other side. And the trauma that I worry, and many of our families experience it today. Actually, yesterday I was at a small event and I was talking to a mom who, because her child was home doing school from home, she had to leave her employment. Will there be work for her on the other end? Will, the stimulus that we know is coming from the federal government, and I'm grateful for it, will that be enough to help our families during that time of transition? The world has changed, and when we see now that many jobs can be done virtually, how will that impact? Look at Downtown Crossing. Again, both of us are from the city. If you've gone to Downtown Crossing over the last year, it is in many ways a wasteland, and businesses are trying to hold on, but offices went remote. There just aren't as many people down there to sustain that local economy. And if businesses, especially those big office buildings that have hundreds, if not thousands of workers that used to show up every day, if they're not coming back to full capacity, all those businesses aren't coming back. And that's gonna impact our workforce. We have to make sure, and as mayor, I'm committed to making sure that we do all of the things we need to do to reopen our economy, reopen our local businesses, and support businesses to get to that point. We have to make it easier to do business. We need to make it easier to grow business, and we have to make it easier to reinvent business, because that all represents, again, food on people's tables, families' tables. It represents economic opportunity, and it represents, for me, I think, a hope for the future. And we have to find that longer term recovery, or we won't be able to invest in things like mental health. We won't be able to invest in education. I chair education, and so much of my work is in that space. We won't be able to add those additional investments if we aren't able to strengthen our economy going forward.
Okay. And since we're on that, as mayor, what's your vision to improve the city's decades-old track record as it relates to dealing with Black or minority-owned and women-owned businesses?
Yeah.
What's your vision for that?
Yeah, and I mean, we need to make it easier to do business with our city. So we can talk about both helping. I was actually talking to a Black woman today who owns her own business, and it was so hard for her to become certified as a Black-owned, female-owned business. We have to make that, it shouldn't be, if I had a ream of paper, a package of paper, it shouldn't be that much of an application to demonstrate and prove that you are a Black owner and a female businesswoman, right? That we've got to streamline and simplify that process. Because if you own your own business, it's hard work to just open the doors every day, to service your customers and to make sure that your product, whatever it is you're selling, is what your customer wants, what your consumer needs. And now we're adding these layers to demonstrate all of these other things. We have to streamline that process. And then for the city piece, because this has been a topic of conversation since I joined the council in 2016, and certainly in the last couple of weeks, it's resurfaced because of the study that was recently published. There's a couple of things we need to do. We need to make it easier for business owners, especially, like you said, Black and minority owned and women owned businesses, to do business with the city, and locally owned. I would add that caveat, locally owned, because I want our residents to be able to do business with our city. We have to open the doors to City Hall so that those business owners can access the technical support, the hand-holding potentially, and a deeper understanding of the process. There's a lot of education that needs to happen. But then we also need to enact, this week, I've actually filed at the City Council a home rule petition that would change state law to make it easier for us as a city to break large contracts up. So it is the very few large companies that can do business with the city because they have the capital, they have the resources, they have the time and the expertise to know the process, to understand the process, to participate in the process, and fill out the damn paperwork to bid on work. If you're a small shop, couple, maybe 1, 2, 3 employees, you just don't have the capacity to go through that process. So what we need to do is break down those large contracts. And we also need to do a better job understanding who some of the subcontractors are that are doing business with the city. That is, for me, a key way to do it. Some of my colleagues have called for a hearing order, which I think is also important to understand and to discuss some of the challenges. But it's really important that we change state law, because that changes how we do business, or gives us more tools in which to do this business by. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I started one of my businesses, and I was told, hey, you gotta make sure you register with the MBE or whatever the thing is called. And I went online, like you said, and it told me all the stuff. And I said, wait, you want me to send you an ID to show you that I'm Black on my ID? You want my birth
certificate? Black card. Doesn't the Black card exist?
That's the point. But Ice Cube got those. You got to go through him to get them. My thing is, you mean to tell me there's nowhere, anywhere that shows you who I already am? The birth certificate, the social. When I saw that, I said, forget it, man. And I left it alone, because you're right.
So many business owners are like you. The work becomes overwhelming. Because it's unreasonable and it's illogical. So you walk away.
So
we have to.
I'm sorry. In that regard, looking at the management and leadership structure in the city now, as it is a lot of lack. So what would you do yourself as mayor to increase a racially diverse cabinet?
So I think it's really important that the cabinet, the leadership, those that occupy the seats around me, as I would be mayor of the city of Boston, and those that would lead the work with me, have to reflect the city. It's really important that we have a racially diverse cabinet, that we have an ethnically diverse cabinet, and that we also have a cabinet that reflects the experiences in the city, both personal experiences, because I can only lead from my own experiences. Growing up in Dorchester, daughter of an Arab Muslim, daughter of a Polish Catholic, first generation American. Those are my experiences, and mother of 4 boys that I'm an expert on. So I can lead with those experiences. I need to make sure that the other people around my table informing the work are leading from other experiences, whether they're Black, whether Latino, whether they're first generation, whether they've been here for generations, whether they're business owners, whether they're teachers. I think it's so exciting, the opportunity to have a teacher in the mayor's chair, whether they're, it does that. All of those experiences are so incredibly important, and the diversity of the cabinet has to reflect the diversity of the city. But it's also equally important to make sure that those doing the work on the front lines are also diverse, are also reflective of the population of this city. And we've got a great city. We've got such a beautifully rich and diverse city. It's something that we need to celebrate it, and we need to celebrate it in all of the things that we do as a city, all of the things that I would be responsible as mayor, all of those, the big heavy decisions that I want to be able to make need to be made in partnership with those that are living those experiences every single day. And I would say I'm very proud of the very diverse staff I've had, both in my city hall office and my business. It's really important to not just say that you'll do something, but have example of how you've already done it. One place I have failed as a city councilor, not my business, but as a city councilor, is we don't have great gender parity. I do have an office of all women, but we do have one young man that's a part-timer that's helped us along the way. But that's just our inside joke. When I formed my city council office, realized that we were all women. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
So you're gonna have to find a way to sew that up. Okay, so what's your position on the city of Boston returning to an elected school committee?
I love it. I am opposed to an elected school committee. The graduate of Boston Tech and someone who was a student activist during those years, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, but I have a solution. I do, and as mayor, I do want the final verdict on the success or failure of our school to lie at my feet. Certainly in partnership with the leadership of a superintendent, but as mayor, I want that responsibility. And when we think about an effective and a much better designed school committee, it's one that's done in partnership with both community and the city council. My proposal is a 9-member body, 5 of those, and this is a reflection and modeled after the Community Preservation Committee. We just went through this process a few years ago. I was a participant in the process as a city councilor. 5 members would be appointed by the mayor representing certain interests. Student member who should have the right to vote. We're working on that today. A parent member, an educator member, a college representative, someone from higher ed, and someone from the business community. I think that the business community has a vested interest in the success of our school system. And then 4 members who are more generally at large, appointed in partnership and through a public process with the city council. We did this with the Community Preservation Committee. We had 100 or just over 100 applications for these 4 at-large positions. They were publicly posted. A working group selected 16 of those applicants for public interview with the City Council Working Committee. The City Council Working Committee selected and recommended 4 that went before the full body of the City Council. Again, public hearing, public view, public testimony on camera, and public Q&A with the sitting City Council. And then those 4 names were passed on to the mayor, voted and passed on to the mayor, all in the public view. And I think for me, that is a way to maintain or keep out some of the politics that would come into an elected school committee, but maintain some of that real public interest and public participation in the process and shared responsibility. I'm a city councilor today. I want to be mayor in November. And I do think that this is something we should be doing in partnership. I have a hashtag I use sometimes on social media that says, that's hashtag government is a team sport. As mayor, I need to work in partnership with the city council. As mayor, I need to work with the state delegation and the governor and with our federal congressional delegation, as well as the presidential administration. That's really important. And government and me as mayor should also work in partnership with community, with nonprofit organizations, with residents, with those interested in, all of the things that we do as a city, because we need to do this work together. I want to be the leader of this city, but the work has to be done in partnership with others.
Okay. And what are your plans for the city's civil rights agencies, like the Human Rights Organization or the Human Rights Commission and the Fair Housing Commission?
Yeah, no, so, it's really important that we continue to work to end all racism in all of our systems of care. And, we know systemic racism exists in education, it exists in housing, it exists in healthcare. And if you didn't know it before, you should know it now because of COVID. It exists in transportation, it exists in all systems. And, those commissions, those organizations play really important roles in reviewing it. I think that it's certainly a new administration is an opportunity to double down on some of those efforts, to ensure that we are working every single day, not just in baby steps, but in strides to end those systemic issues that persist and have persisted for generations. Okay.
And we're about to tie it up, but now some tough questions at the end. Michael Jackson or Prince?
Oh, Prince.
Uh-oh.
Little Purple Rain. A little,
okay. Purple Rain is the joint. That's the song.
Raspberry Beret.
Okay. You're at Blarney Stone. What's your order?
Blarney burger and a pink fizz.
You sound like a straight up Dorchester kid.
It's a gin drink with a little, like a strawberry or something in it.
Okay. Here's the big ice cream debate.
Uh-oh.
A lot of people will be voting for people based on their answer to this. Butter pecan or maple walnut?
Pistachio. I guess if I had to pick between the two of them, it would be maple walnut.
Okay. Coca-Cola or Pepsi?
Oh, it depends if it's in a can, a bottle, or a fountain.
Oh.
I love a Pepsi from the fountain, but okay. I do prefer like a can of Coke.
Okay. Something about you that's true that people will think is a lie.
That I'm 47. I can only wish.
Okay.
Let's see. That's a great question. You know what? I do know what it is. I only have one gray hair on my head. My sisters hate me for it. My sisters are much younger than me. And right now I've got some blonde in there, but
it's not because this is like natural, not because the hair dye. Right.
I have one gray hair in my head, one single strand. Now I'll get a whole head full. But my sisters are much, much younger than me, including my sister that's 18 years younger than me, hates me for it.
Oh, so now when people see you in public, they're going to just stare at your head.
Well, right now it's all colored. But yeah, this summer was one gray hair I had. I found it. I was horrified when I found it, but.
Okay. See, we know. What's your wedding song? You and your husband just got married. What's the song?
It was,
Uh-oh, you're going to get in trouble.
I am going to get in trouble. It'll come to me later.
Then you're going to call.
It was something about friend or something. Oh, goodness.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a typical, it wasn't like, top 40.
Okay. So, what was it that made you say, I do? What is it about him?
What was it about him? There's a couple of things. One, he was from Dorchester. I really appreciated that. And I liked that he came from a big family because I feel like I had a small family growing up. So I like the big extended family. I'd say that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Boston politics.
Okay. You're at Dunkin Donuts and you're about to order a coffee. How do you order it?
Yeah. Large ice, just cream.
Okay.
or hot, depends on what I'm feeling, but just regular. I'm not a big flavored coffee person.
Okay. Well, I really
I did have
appreciate
a
the
Vietnamese coffee today though at Cocoa Leaf in Fields
of
Corner.
what?
That was good. A Vietnamese iced coffee. Oh, that
There's
was
such a
good.
thing?
Yeah, so it's good too. It's strong. I'll be up late tonight.
Okay.
They make it with like a condensed milk. Oh, it was good.
I'm gonna try. That's not on Dorchester Ave, right? Like,
Yeah, it's right near the train station. Right
oh,
across the street from the like right at the bridge on Dot Ave.
oh no. Oh, I was talking about one further down. It's kind of like it looks like it's across from it's over there by the Pep Boys or one of those things that's near there. My wife used to like to go to that one. And that's the first time I ever heard of what bok choy was. I was like, bok choy, what's that? It looked like a big old plate of cabbage, but I love it.
That's good.
So Annissa George, I really enjoyed hanging out with you. I appreciate you. And I'm glad you had the coffee so you can do the whole hour.
I love it.
And I hope to talk to you very, very soon,
so
especially
too.
when we do the print editions. Good luck on what you're doing with your campaign, and
Thank you.
blessings to you, your husband, and the boys. And hopefully we'll see you skating someday soon.
I'll send you a picture. I promised
Okay.
to do it, so I got to do it.
All right.
Thank you, MC. I'll talk to you soon. Have a
Okay.
great
See you
night.
later.